I'm here to talk to you today about farms, and not just any farms, hog farms to be specific. There are nearly 9 million hogs on just 2,400 farms in eastern North Carolina. Um, so, what's really interesting about this and what's really important to recognize about this is that it's only in a handful of counties that this happens. So these hog farming facilities, known as CAFOs, so concentrated animal feeding operations, are very close to residential areas, which complicates matters, of course. So they are also home to, as I mentioned, 9 million hogs. So when you have a lot of hogs, you have a lot of waste, right? This waste is stored in sort of these reservoirs called lagoons. And then once the lagoons are sort of really close to overflowing, this waste is sort of aerosolized and used as manure in crop fields, right? So what's really dangerous about these lagoons and about this sort of manure spray that they use is that lagoons contain pathogens, heavy metals, and antibiotic resistant bacteria, and sort of this waste spray actually releases an odor plume within the region and within the communities nearby that contains respiratory and eye irritants, so really exasperating any pre-existing conditions that these folks may have. And so a really important environmental justice aspect to this is that study after study after study has shown that there is an excess of hog operations, or these CAFOs, near low-income communities and communities of color, which leads to a lot of conflict between sort of these communities and the corporations that are there. I think community-based marketing strategy to sort of address hog farming and this issue is really important. A lot of top-down policy is well-intentioned, but maybe doesn't have the impact that we'd like it to have. So really working hand in hand and really uplifting, empowering, and building off of existing initiatives rather than sort of building something new, I think will be really important for us. And also sort of doing this in a way that creates a statewide coalition of North Carolinians through public awareness campaigns and things like that, I think is also very, very important. So now, what are the necessary actions? To begin, we sort of take a happiness index, is what I've sort of termed it, based off of other variations of this value to sort of summarize the living conditions that folks are experiencing. Also, sort of collecting demographic identifiers, so like race, income, gender, and age, to really sort of nail down the fact that this is an environmental justice issue. This is not just sort of an ecological issue. So designing infographics, holding political education workshops, just sort of creating this is creating this as a issue that is front and center in people's minds. So distributing petitions, calling and holding our local politicians and also these corporations accountable for their actions, and to sort of pay reparations and to fix these things so that they are not continuing to harm folks. Also working with university researchers to coordinate environmental health data collection to really solidify and push this legislation and make sure that it is rooted in science and fact. So we've seen that, despite several lawsuits in recent years, the pork industry continues to thrive. And so I guess the next question is why? A lot of it has to do with the fact that it's very wealthy and it's very powerful, making it really difficult to change these hog farms or the way that they are run. So I think that we can overcome this barrier by really sitting down with an open mind and pushing for this idea of gradual and incrementalism and incremental reform rather than sort of tearing everything down at once, and sort of meeting people where they are and sort of really leading this to compromise, right? Because at this point, really, any change is better than no change. I think that's really important to keep in mind. Also ensuring that, by creating the statewide coalition, we are showing people that the public cares and North Carolinians care and that they aren't going to back down. So issues like this, I think, are really hard for individuals. I know I definitely have a hard time grappling with things this big because it does feel very insurmountable, but I think that it's important to recognize just by listening and learning through experiences of folks who are living near these CAFOs, who are going through this every day, that we can sort of help address these environmental injustices within our very own state.